So welcome back to Third Rate Content. Happy New Year, and it's going to be fantastic 2024. Today, as you probably can tell, we're back at Whittington Castle. We have been here before. It was quite a while ago with far inferior filming technology and with far inferior knowledge up here. But we're growing and we're learning all the time here on Third Rate Content, all of us together. But we're going to have a real investigate and explore and, you know, on some of the new facts that we know, or some of the new speculations or mythical history. We'll be relaying it all to you while we have an investigate on this absolutely sort of eerie December the 23rd. I say Happy New Year. This video will be coming out in the new year, but we're here just before Christmas 2023. So buckle up and I'll see you out here.
Whittington Castle is in northern Shropshire, England, is owned and managed by the Whittington Castle Preservation Fund. The castle was originally a motte and bailey fortress, but this was replaced in the 13th century by the buildings around the courtyard, whose exterior wall was the curtain wall of the inner bailey. As a castle of the Welsh Marches, it was built on the border of Wales and England, very close to the historic fort of Old Oswestry. This is according to Wikipedia. But what we're here to talk about today is Whittington Castle's associations with the Holy Grail, or the Marian Chalice, or even the Cup of Bran, where the famous cornucopia of myth comes from. And our main source of information for our visit today is the academic study made into a book called King Arthur, The True Story by Graham Phillips and Martin Keepman. And we're just right by the side of Whittington Castle here, and these stone walls look so ancient. So, early Christian tradition holds that Jesus' follower Mary Magdalene collected Christ's blood in a sacred vessel after the crucifixion. In this particular version of the story, the vessel is not the cup of the Last Supper, but an oil or ointment container. The Gospels describe how a woman, usually identified as Mary Magdalene, prepared Jesus for his martyrdom by anointing him with an aromatic oil or with balm.
Yeah, today's visit to Whittington Castle, you could say it's me, Third Rate Content, re-pledging to the Holy Grail Quest, because we've been covering a lot of mystery, history and all that in 2023. My knowledge personally has improved massively. The Shropshire, I didn't really understand hardly anything that was going on back in the day. I just had glimpses, broken fragments, and I still have got a lot to learn with you guys. But I watched a video a couple of days ago from a very fine YouTuber, Java in the Raw, and I very much enjoyed the video on the Holy Grail, Arthurian legends, which we have been covering on this channel. I think the guy who runs it made the video, you know, in the last month or two, but it gave me personally a new perspective of what we have been covering on Third Rate Content, Shropshire and the surrounding area and the haunted landscape of Shropshire and the layers upon layers of history, a deeper perspective. And I've also, not just off that video, but I've compiled absolutely loads of sites for us to visit in 2024. There's loads and we haven't visited any of these sites before. We have visited Whittington Castle before, but why don't we start at the beginning? Shropshire's Holy Grail Castle, or Grail Castle, with all its legends and all that. So really, I'm back here re-pledging to the Grail Quest, just like the Knights of the Round Table, really. So yeah, 2024 is going to be exciting, in my opinion, of course. Yeah, some very interesting tree graffiti, kind of spooky. We're in the right place for that type of thing, I think. Yeah, and some of it goes right up. Percy, that must have been done ages ago, and these other names.
And this one, really high up, it reminds me of the Sheila Nagig that we saw at Church Strand last week. I don't know, something about it. It does look a bit strange and mysterious. Maybe I'm wrong and that's just me. As I was walking around the bottom of the castle, the bottom of the chapel, I believe, I disturbed these pigeon-stroke doves. I think they are actually doves. And the little girl one that we're looking at here standing at the front then followed me round for the rest of my time at the castle. It was really cute. I don't know if it thought I was going to feed it, but it was my friend, and it'll pop up at other points in the video. It was a really, really charming companion.
Yeah, and just to think, the first time I ever came here 7 or 8 years ago, I actually thought Whittington Castle was a folly. How wrong was I? It just shows how your perspective can change, and then change again, and then change again. Just like everything in life, really. You just evolve as you learn new things, and it's a great thing, I think.
So it is believed after Christ's crucifixion, the Holy Grail was sealed up in his tomb for 400 years until the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great converted to Christianity in the early 4th century.
His mother, the Empress Helena,
ordered the excavation of the Holy Sepulchre, the purported site of Christ's tomb in Jerusalem. During the excavation, a cup was found, which many believed to be the Marian chalice, or the Holy Grail. It was taken to Rome, where it was believed to possess miraculous healing powers. The Marian chalice, or chalice of Magdalene, remained in Rome until the city was sacked by the barbarians in AD 410. Along with other treasures, it was taken from the city in an armed convoy of carts and brought to the safety of Britain, the last outpost of Roman civilization in Western Europe. What then happened to the sacred relic went unrecorded, but well into the Middle Ages the legend persisted that it was still hidden somewhere in the British Isles. Similarly, the Holy Grail and the Marian chalice were vessels that were said to have held the blood of Christ, and this was believed to have been held and hidden in Britain. These similarities between the two stories suggest that they both had the same origin. However, there is also another relationship between the two vessels. Like the Grail, the Marian chalice was linked to the story of King Arthur and his knights, who we keep coming up against in Shropshire. also another relationship between the two vessels, the Marian Chalice and the Holy Grail. Like the Grail, the Marian Chalice was linked with the story of King Arthur and his knights. In the Arthurian story, the Grail is kept in a secret chapel in a fortress called the White Castle, in a place known as the White Town. You do not have to look up Shropshire place names to know that the White Town was Whittington and the White Castle was Whittington Castle itself. In the 13th century, an English knight called Fulk Fitzwarren claimed to possess the Marian Chalice, although he did not specifically refer to it as the Holy Grail. His historical claim to have owned it may have inspired the Arthurian Grail romances of the Middle Ages.
Third-rate contents, tour guide to Whittington Castle.
As an aside, Fulk Fitzwarren, in his childhood days, was brought up in the royal household and had a serious falling out over a game of chess with the would-be King John. And later in his adult life, King John held a grudge, and as well with what is thought to be being paid off by Fulk's rival, deprived Fulk Fitzwarren of his rightful lands and Whittington Castle itself. And Fulk Fitzwarren lived as an outlaw for quite some time, and he is thought to have lain in wait where in later centuries wild Humphrey Kynaston would call his lair at Nestcliff Hill, waiting for his rival Merrick Fitzroger de Powys, and he slew him, after which he fled to take refuge with Llewellyn of Wales. Eventually, he caught King John whilst the king was hunting in the New Forest and carried him on board a ship and forced him to restore his lands. So he returned to Whittington in peace and lived there till he died. And some do say that Fitzwarren inspired the tales of Robin Hood, but I would tend to disagree with that. To me, Robin Hood will always be from Sherwood Forest, right next to Nottingham and Nottingham Castle. But again, these are my prejudices and my speculations. And I recently learnt that Nottingham was called Snottingham in the days of the Vikings, and this I learnt from playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But I did look it up to confirm this fact. In the early 1200s, Fulk Fitzwarren died. Shortly after, his family was once again forced to leave the castle, and over many centuries it fell into disrepair. What became of the Marian Chalice remained one of England's unsolved historical mysteries. Again, according to Graham Phillips's book, the Whittington relic, said to be the Marian Chalice, disappeared until the mid-19th century, when one of Fulk's descendants, a Shropshire writer named Thomas Wright, claimed that the cup had been handed down to him by his ancestors. It was described as a small stone cup made from green alabaster, also known as onyx. Only one description of it still survives, in an illustration made by Wright's friend and contemporary artist Arthur Mead. In a biblical scene showing Mary Magdalene washing the feet of Jesus, beside her on the floor is the scent jar, which she is said to have used to collect the blood of Christ. It seems to be about 3 inches tall, shaped like an egg cup with a lid. Rightly or wrongly, Thomas Wright was in no doubt that this cup was the original Holy Grail. In 1855, with no children to hand it on to, Thomas Wright decided to hide the cup for posterity. presumably seeing himself as some kind of latter-day Merlin. Wright claimed to have left an elaborate trail of clues that he said led to its hiding place. These were alluded to in a poem he published in 1855 called Sir Gawain and the Red Knight. It tells the story of Arthur's knight Gawain and his quest to discover the Holy Grail, which he identifies with the Marian Chalice. The story is set in Wright's native Shropshire, beginning at the White Castle at Whittington and ending with Gawain finding the Grail at the Red Knight's Castle, called the Red Castle. This was another historical medieval building some 10 miles east of Whittington in the grounds of the county estate of Hawkstone Park.
So, at some point in 2024, we will visit the Red Castle and Hawkstone Follies. And here's our friend again. And there's ruined monasteries and churches, stained glass with mysterious figures and symbols, and much more that we are going to investigate together on our Holy Grail Quest and on Third Rate Content. So I do hope you come along with us. Yeah, we're at Shropshire's would-be Holy Grail Castle here, or the Cup of Plenty, Bran's Cup of Plenty, which we have actually covered on the Caer Caradoc video. When I say covered, we mentioned it a couple of times. But Holy Grail, obviously, it has got associations with the Knights Templar, which we've briefly covered, you know, when we went to the cave near Shifnal. I didn't really talk about them that much because Knights Templar is one of those rabbit holes. You can go down it. I mean, it's not hard to type in Knights Templar on Google, but you could spend days or a lifetime researching it or hearing all the different theories. Some of them really out there, but again, when you actually start reading about them, they start seeming more and more plausible. I mean, Knights Templar obviously were formed in the times of the Crusades in the 11th century, 1000s
and onwards.
But then there's associations with the Holy Grail, and it goes as far back as some people speculate that they were formed by Rex Deus families, and the Crusades were kind of manipulated into happening so that the Knights Templar could form and go back to the Holy Land and get under the Temple Mount. I mean, it's really interesting and really out there, some of it. But if you're interested, just check it out. I mean, again, I'm not a historian at all, but I'm just sort of heading you off to go and have a look at that if you're interested. But here we are in Shropshire's Holy Grail Castle, and it's great visiting it.
In fact, have a listen to Tim Wallace-Murphy himself.
Back to the 24 high priests of the Temple of Jerusalem, which includes the family of Jesus. And according to Holy Mother the Church, and who are we to doubt their word, Jesus was single and had no children. But in actual fact, like all Jews of his time, he was obliged by Jewish custom and tradition to marry and procreate. He was doubly empowered to do this because he was also a rabbi and the heir to the throne, the line of David. So he had to produce an heir. And one of the most closely guarded secrets in European history is the fact that he founded a bloodline known as the Desposini, which are still extant in Europe today. When I go to England, I stay with one member of it, and when I go to Nice, I have breakfast with another. And descendants of Jesus are all around you. Many of the people who are the true descendants of Jesus of Nazareth don't even know it. I just used a term which is inaccurate, Jesus of Nazareth. The problem is Nazareth didn't exist at the time of Jesus. He was Jesus the Nazarene. He was a member of an esoteric cult attached to the Essene order. an initiatory form of spirituality which is still being practiced in secret today. And the Rexdeus families outwardly practice the religion of their place and time, but secretly amongst themselves follow their own path. They trace the influence of these families on the development of European culture. That influence was quite profound, particularly in spiritual matters. They were the families responsible for the founding of the military order of the Knights Templar, and after that was suppressed, several centuries later, they played a seminal role in the foundation of the worldwide fraternity of Freemasonry, which is still running and still extant today. So their influence is all-pervasive. They were still practicing a form of initiatory Judaism which traced its roots back long before the time of Jesus, and its original origins come from Egypt. That story deserves to be told. And it's a story which is riveting, because these people acquired power in Europe very, very early on at the time of Charlemagne and are still in positions of power today. And there is a chivalric order which is still running, called the Order of the Fleur de Lis. Membership is by invitation. But to hold office within that order, you have to be a member of one of the families of the Rexdeus group. And they cover some very, very powerful people. What their agenda is today, I haven't the faintest idea. But they're still about, and they're still exerting massive influence behind the scenes, all very quietly. And I, for one, would love to know what their agenda is.
And we're ending today's video in the chapel that is said to have housed the Holy Grail for hundreds of years. A fitting end.
Yeah, just got a bit of shelter out of the wind. It's really windy here today. In fact, the wind's just got up again. But recently I've met two third-rate content viewers. Yes, it was John Reeves and John Norman. I met them over a space of a couple of days, and I met John Reeves. I met John Norman in Morrison's at the kiosk when I was queuing up. Really nice to meet you, John. We had a lovely chat, talked about third-rate content and how much he enjoyed it. And I just want to say, I hope we continue to provide content that you enjoy throughout 2024. It was great meeting you. And also John Norman, who I met in Castlefields. And it was a real pleasure again to have a nice chat with you, John. And again, I'm going to do my absolute best to continue to provide content that you gentlemen both enjoy going forward. And let me tell you, I love making it. So, like I always say, barring injury and accidents, there's going to be no let up with third-rate content in 2024. But anyway, that's the end of our visit to Whittington Castle. Beautiful scenery, very cold, very windy, so I couldn't do too many walkie-talkie bits really, because the wind is just encroaching on anything. I might have to get a microphone, you know, going forward, put it on my jumper or something. We'll see how it goes, but like I say, 2024, we've got loads planned, loads of places we've never been. I'd never heard of most of them, and I can't wait to get out there in the fields or churches or anywhere and visit these places with you all. So thank you for everything for 2023. We're now in 2024, although I'm in 2023 still, but this video will be uploaded in 2024. It's just one of those really weird things about doing a channel. But if I don't see you soon, I'll see you 3 times as soon. But if you'd like as well, before we go, why don't you leave a like if you did enjoy the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed up to now. Really appreciate it. And drop a comment if you want to have a chat about something. Even if there's something you didn't like, feel free. You know, I've got a very thick skin, so you can say anything to me. as long as it's not offending other people, blah, 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 you know, or breaking terms and conditions of YouTube. As far as I'm concerned, you can say whatever you want. But so far in Third Rate Content's career, and probably tempting fate here, we've pretty much only had good positive comments. So onwards with 2024, and hope you had a great Christmas and New Year, even though I'm still not even had Christmas at this point. But the wind's getting up, and although it looks nice and sunny, it's really cold. So anyway, see you soon, bye bye. And just before we go, I'll just tell you, after I'd finished filming, I was feeling a bit peckish, and I used the brilliant cafe stroke restaurant here. I had a bacon and turkey club sandwich with fries and coleslaw, and I usually don't like coleslaw, but it was excellent. The whole thing was, and the staff were brilliant. And I also had a little look at the interior, and I bought from the bookshop that's in the interior of Whittington Castle 4 archaeology magazines. It was actually 5 pence each. You know, it's something I find interesting, and you're contributing to Whittington Castle Fund and its preservation by both using the restaurant and the bookshop. So yeah, it was really excellent, and if you do visit, why don't you pop in?